Welcome. My name is Laverne O'Hara Jenkins, and with me today, my colleague, Mr. Kirk Harvey. Tax Administration Jamaica has introduced a series of webinars under our Special Taxpayer Assistance Program. Today, we will be looking at the IT-05 and the residential solar photovoltaic system credit. I will be introducing the IT-05 return, looking at who should file this return, what is the due date for this return, and the requirements to access any refund or any tax payable. My colleague Kirk Harvey will be demonstrating how to complete and compute the relevant credit or refund or payable of taxes. We also would like to welcome our team in the chat. We have with us today Mrs. Colleen Williams, Mrs. Charlene Beckford, and Ms. Renita Lowe. To you, our valued clients, we encourage you to post your questions in the chat where they'll be responded to accordingly. Let's dive in. Our objectives here, there are three main ones. We'll be completing the IT-05 form, which is the return for income and taxes payable. And this is mainly done by individuals who are on the pay-as-you-earn system or the PAYE system. Not only persons who are employed, but pensioners and other such persons. Another objective is for you to know the requirements that will qualify you to complete this return. The final objective is to look at how we compute the income tax credit or the income tax payable, as the case may be, in completing this IT-05 form. The income tax return is used by persons under the pay-as-you-earn system. We know this as the PAYE system. These are persons whose income is taxed at source. Income such as salary, wages, pensions, dividends, bank interest, investment interest, and other source income from which tax has been deducted at source in excess of the correct liability. Importantly, persons who are receiving income from other sources where tax is not deducted at source, these persons should complete the SO4 form. Let's look at who should file the IT-05 form. These are persons who are PAYE individuals applying for a tax refund. Other persons who should file this IT-05 form are pensioners, persons who are expatriates, persons who are certified disabled, and those who have been made redundant. Also, persons who were on study leave. When is the due date for filing the IT-05 form? The IT-05 form should be submitted within 6 years for such persons. This form is mandatory filed online. So, in order to clarify, there is actually no due date to file the IT-05 form, except that you should file the same form within 6 years. To file the IT-05 form, you must do this online. To do so, you are to create a user access. We encourage you to do so by logging onto our website, which is www.jamaicatax.gov.jm. Once you log in, you are required to create your username and password, apply for an e-services account, and then register the individual income tax account. My colleague Kirk will go through a demonstration in his presentation. Let's look at some of the documents required by the different category of persons in completing this IT-05. Here, we are seeing persons who are on the pay-as-you-earn system. There are two main documents that they will require. These are the P24 for the relevant years, and we ask that this P24 form be stamped and signed by your employer. The second item required is the client information form. And this is found on the Tax Administration Jamaica website. This client information form really documents your banking detail so that we may send this refund to your bank. It requires that it should be accompanied by proof of your bank account or verify this same form by your bank. We continue to look at other persons who are required to complete the IT-05. And in this category, we have persons who are on a redundancy basis. There are 4 main documents. These are the P45 for the current year. This must be stamped and signed. The P24 for the last 3 years of employment, and it should also be stamped and signed. The third document is the redundancy statement or letter. And finally, the client information form. There are some important information that should be found in the letter or the statement of the persons who are applying for a redundancy refund. Let's look at these. These statements should include the exact date of employment commencement, the redundancy date, the total redundancy payment showing separate figures for statutory deductions, such as NIS, National Housing Trust, education tax, and income tax. We also want to see the amounts paid relating to the redundancy that was included in the gross pay on the P24 or the P45. We want to also see the details relating to your vacation leave payment, your notice pay, and other amounts paid, stating clearly the tax deducted on these payments. We are jumping into another category of persons required to complete the IT-05, and we say these are the expatriate persons. There are about 8 items. Let's look at them. We want the P45 for the current year of employment, the P24 for the past years of employment, the work permit or exemption letter received. We want to see a copy of your employment contract. We would like to see your valid passport verifying your residency and a plane ticket or itinerary showing that you are returning to your country. We also want to have that completed IT-0 form, which is what we will assist you with here at Tax Administration Jamaica, and the client information form, so that any funds due should be posted there. Documents required for persons who are applying for a disability refund are the P24 for the relevant years, a letter from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security stating that individual is a certified disabled person. 3, we also want to see that completed IT-0 form, and remember, assistance is granted, is given to you for guidance on our online platform. The client information form is going to also be required for accompaniment. Pensioners who are applying for a refund in completing the same IT-05, they should supply the proof of age, which should be done through a birth certificate or their passport, a proof of pension if they're receiving a pension from the NIS office or from the Accountant General's Department or any source that this pension is being received from. We would like them to supply, if necessary, any withholding tax certificates from their financial institution for each of the years that they are making a claim for. The client information form is going to be required also. We also want P24 if the taxpayer is receiving a salary or a pension for each of the year that a claim is being made. The 6th point for pensioners includes proof of any other income earned. For example, if they receive rental income, director's fee, and so on. Point 7 for pensioners states that any interest that statement that they may have from their financial institution and any document that were previously exempted would be required from such persons. We are looking now at documents required for persons who are on a study leave basis. We have 7 points here. For persons on a study leave basis, they too are required to complete this IT-05 I-305 form for each of the year that the study leave was approved for. They are required to submit their loans or their bond agreement, a P24 for each of the year in which the salary was paid while they were on study leave. The fourth point asks for a letter of award stating the commencement and termination of the date of the course of study. Point 5 looks at the resumption letter signed by the employee and acknowledged by their employer. Point 6 looks at a letter advising of vacation leave entitlement at the commencement of the course and whether leave was utilized during the course of study. The client information form is the next form that should be accompanied. We have looked at the persons who are required to complete the IT-05 form, and we have stated that for this form, we would like to emphasize that the residential solar PV credit system credit is a feature that has been introduced for completion on the IT-05 form. Let's look at the eligibility criteria to access this credit where necessary. Section 25F, point 4 of the Income Tax Act has stated that the system must be acquired and installed by the taxpayer or any other owner of the principal place of residence on or before January 1, 2023. The electrical work carried out on the installation of the system must be certified by a licensed electrical inspector. And that would have been the second point of the eligibility criteria. Other criteria include all property tax payments being made up to date, and these property tax must be in relation to the residential property where the solar system is installed, and these property taxes, as we said, must be up to date. In respect of the taxpayer, if a credit has been approved, then this credit is being allowed for the purchase and installation of the solar PV system for the first time. It means that apart from this first time purchase, then there are no other credit that will be applied. Mr. Harvey will go further, and if you have your questions regarding these pointers, please remember to post them in the chat. In respect of the dwelling house at which a solar PV system is installed, the credit is being allowed only for the first time. I will now turn over to Mr. Harvey, who will demonstrate how to complete the IT-05 and give you more information on this residential PV system credit. Thank you.
Thank you, Laverne. Now, doing business online should be easy and convenient. This session is really to help you to navigate you through doing the registration and also to help you to file your return, that the process can be easy and convenient and that you can properly complete your IT-05 form and in a timely manner, right? So now we will go to our website where we will start the registration process and also complete the return. We are going to navigate, we are going to go to our website, which is www.jamaicatax.gov, where we'll begin the registration process. And once we are at the website, we are going to look to the right-hand corner of our screen where we see the login option at the top or the client's login, right? There is where we will create the first registration, where we create the username, the TAJ online access that will be required whenever you're logging into our website. So we go to that screen right now. For those who already have a login, they will just simply put in that username and enter the password. For those that do not have a username, they will navigate to create an account, which is located at the bottom of your screen. They'll be required to enter their names and also the username up to a maximum of 12 characters, an email address, select their gender, and also put in the text verification, right? So we do that right now. Okay, so the name we're using is John Handsome, and we're using a username handsome1, and my email address is handsome1@gmail.com. I'll select my gender and the verification text we have there is A223, and what we do is to save that information. All right, so an error message is coming up to say that your request failed, right? So therefore, it's either this name is already taken or the email address was previously used, right? So we go again and to use change the and add another character, and then we'd have to change the verification text. Oh. Okay. All right, so that successfully went through. So whenever it is saved, it will, a default password will go to your email address. And what we do is just copy that default password, and then we log in. Now, we are required to complete to accept the privacy, security, and accessibility policy. And it is very important for us to read this, and then we'll go to the bottom and accept, right? And whether or not you want to, right? If you choose to disagree, it will prompt you and say that you must agree to the terms, right? So we go ahead and agree to the terms, right? You are required to select your security question, right, of your choice. So you can select one from the list, or you can choose to put your question. So in this case, I will just use what is your father's middle name, and seeing that my father has none, I can put none as my answer, right? And once that is done, I will save the information, right? All right, so the next step, and that is the process of creating the screen name that will be used in order to access our website. The next step is to create a e-service and account, which is also required for you to file your returns and also to make pay, to file your returns and to interface with our Raise platform. So we go to the application, apply for an e-service account, and we select that. And what we do is to complete the registration. It's very important for you to read the instructions, as the instructions will tell you what is needed in order for you to successfully complete this application, as well as the supporting documents that you need to upload, right? And after that, we will just navigate next to the next step. You select your, are you applying as an individual organization? And you select that option, and then you will complete the application form. So I'm John Handsome. My TRN. You're required to enter your TRN, your email address, then you're required to enter your phone number, then you select the country, Jamaica, or whichever country your telephone is connected to, and select the type of instrument, right? Then we'll move to the next step. After successfully completing that step, move where we have the security questions. All right, sorry, no. All right, just give me a second, please. Having some challenges with the TRN. Okay, we seem to be having some challenges in doing the registration. But what we do is we have to complete the account details, the security questions, and then we go to the account manager's details, and then we submit the application. And then once that is done, you'll get a response within 2 to 3 days, right? So that is basically what the registration involves. We're having some challenges now, but you're required to do this registration in order to access our RAISE platform. All right, so what we do now is that we just navigate to the demonstration, right? So once the e-service account has been approved and you log in, is that this is the screen that will come up, right? Right, and what you do, we just go directly to manage. You can select manage my e-service account, and that will take you to the RAISE platform. Right. So the next screen that you're seeing is the RAISE platform, right? Persons, we see here that there's no account that is available. You know, persons that have already filed their returns before, they will see their education, their income tax account appearing. So in this case, this person does not have any account, right? So therefore, what we're trying to do is that we want to empower you and ensure that you know what to do. So in the case of where you don't have an account, you can go to the top right-hand corner of your screen and look for the register for an account option, right? This option will enable you to register for the particular account that will assist you in filing your IT-05, right? So we'll just select that account and it will take us to the application screen. Right. Now the application, as usual, we read the instructions and then we go to the next screen, right? And the account that we're looking for is the individual tax account, PAYE individual, and we are going to file the return for 2024. So we select the period. I have selected the 1st of January 2024. And then we just navigate to the next screen and we read we confirm the request and then we submit the application. Now, once that is done, is that the account will appear on your screen, right? The income tax account is the driver for the return. And therefore, we are going to select the income tax account and that will take us to the return form that needs to be completed. Let me say that, is that we as an administration want to ensure that you are provided with information and the guidance and that you know exactly what to do in the case when you're trying to reach us and that you're not able to get to us, that you are able to do it by yourself, right? So at the end of the session, we want to navigate you in that direction that you are empowered and that you can successfully do it on your own without relying on us, right? So therefore, is that you will go to the income tax account and then we'll go to the return that needs to be filed for the period. All right, the first section of the return, section A, is for general information. And in this section, you're required to provide information such as your residency or if you're gainfully employed, right? And what we have done is also to put some footnotes there that you can be guided in your response. So in terms of your residency, is that there's a note that says that if you're in Jamaica for 183 days or more in a tax year, you are a resident for that year. If you come to Jamaica to live for 2 years or more, you are a resident from the day of the arrival. You are also likely to be a Jamaican resident if you come to Jamaica regularly each year and you are in Jamaica for an average of 90 days or more in a tax year. This is usually worked out over a maximum of 4 consecutive tax years, okay? We're employing, the question about are you gainfully employed, you will select yes, all right? Let us do that now. And select your residency. All right, so it moves us to the next section where we are required to provide income from all employment and offices. Let me say that, to successfully complete your ITO5, your source documents are critical because this is the information that you're basically putting into the system, right? And this is what the system does. It automatically calculates the information, the amount that is due or the amount that is due for refund, payable or refunded, right? So all you have to do is just to enter the information, the required information in the required field. So the section for income from all employment and office, you're required to input that information from your P24. And this section is very important that we put the required source, the source of income in the right column, right? So this here is asking for the salary, wages, bonuses, fees, and commission. And we're going to select the blue. All that is in blue is an hyperlink that will take you to another screen. So we're going to select the salary, wages, and bonus that will take us to the next screen where we are required to put in our P24 information. Let me just pause to say that pensioners also get a P24. So the pension information is not required to be, you should have, there's a section designated for that. So you should not put, although you're getting a P24, then you should not put that information in this box because there is an implication, right? And I will discuss that later as we go to that section, right? So what we do is that we have to add a record of the P24 that is presented. And it's very simple. It's just a matter of you taking the information from your P24 and enter it into the system, right? Right? And that is how the P24, most P24 will come up like this. And all it's just a matter of you putting the information. So here for this particular scenario, John Brown is getting a salary of $1.8 million. The tax that is deducted from his salary is $23,977.50. And then in this employment, he pays $54,000 for NIS. Once again, he got a salary of $1.8 thousand. He got tax was deducted $23,977.50, and NIS that was paid was $54,000. And you just enter the information in the relevant box. And as soon as you have done that, you are going to press OK. That is located at the bottom right hand of your screen. All right, so as soon as that is done, it will take us back to the previous screen, right? And we realize that information is populated in the particular screen. We see the salary information there, and we see the NIS also there appearing on the screen. All right. So what happened with this scenario is that this person got early retirement, right? And they are being paid NIS pension, but they are still young and they can still be gainfully employed. So the pension that they receive, this is where we will put the pension information, right? So although they will get the P24, the pension information will be inputted in the section designated for pension. So in this case, Mr. John Brown got 120, Mr. John Handsome got $120,000 for his pension, right? And all we do is just to enter that information there, right? He also is in receipt of additional income, right? And the boxes that are located there, and the relevant boxes will be completed based on the sources of income that the customer has or the taxpayer has. So that therefore, if he has gross preference dividends, if he receives gross preference dividends, you will select the box. And as I said, that this is once you select the blue, the words that are in blue, it will take you to another screen that you will be able to input the information, right? There's also gross dividends. There's also gross interest that you receive, and annuities and trust income. So once we select any of the box, it will take you to another screen that you will require to put in this information, right? So we see here coming up all the different sources of income that one will receive: annuities, dividends, and interest income, preference dividends, and trust. So you'll be required just to input the information just as how it occurs on your withholding certificates or whatever certificates or document that is provided from you from these entities, right? Here we have an example. It was already done. We receive annuity payments from General Insurance Company in the sum of $50,000, and they withheld $12,500 from us. We receive interest payments from Bank of Jamaica in the sum of gross amount of $30,000, and they withheld $7,500 from that certificate. We receive other dividends from Credit Union of Jamaica in the amount of $15,000, and they withheld $2,250, right? And as soon as we have completed the information, we go to the bottom screen again, and then we just OK, and the information will be populated, automatically populated. So we see where the dividends has been populated: $15,000, the gross interest, and likewise the annuities that were received from the insurance company, right? If there are no other sources of information or sources of income, then we will just go to the next screen. We see the next screen being the sources outside of the island. So what you do is that you complete the relevant section, and then you just move on. Important to note is that, if it is always important to save your document as a draft, because we recognize that so many things can happen. You could have a power cut, you can have your internet going out, you might have to take a break, you might probably have to go on the road, but you can always save your document and you can go back to it at a later date, right? Or just if you need to move away from your computer just for a second, you can save it and then you can come back and continue to edit. All right? Just remember that. All right. So this section now is where the exemptions is the exemptions and frank, the section for exemptions and frank income. Sorry. We recognize that the pension exemption is $120,000. And why the exemption is the same as the amount that the customer received is because the threshold for the pension exemption, it was increased to $250,040. And last year, but that was effective April, and the previous threshold was $80,000. So the combination of the threshold of both threshold would have given us an annual threshold of $207,530, right? So therefore, the pension exemption is kept at that, right? But whatever the pension is below that, that will become your pension exemption, right? So if the pension amount is below the annual exemption, then whatever that figure is below it, it will be kept at that figure. So in this case, the taxpayer was in receipt of $120,000. So therefore, the pension exemption is kept at $120,000. And I'm just going to give you to show you that another scenario. What we did was to just change the pension information to, as you can see, to 600,000. And we're going to show you where the exemption has changed to the capped amount, which is 207,530, right? So if you earn any pension in excess of that, it will be capped at 207,530. And guys, you remember how we got that? Is because the threshold increased in April, it is 9 months of the new threshold, which is $250,040, and 3 months of the previous threshold, which was $80,000, right? So the annual threshold just for last year would have been 207,530, right? This year, the threshold will go, right, because it's an entire calendar year, will be $250,040, right? Let me also explain to you the age exemption. If by chance this taxpayer was at age 65 and over, they also will be entitled to this age allowance by being 65 and over, right? But for this scenario, the person is below the age, hence that's why the exemption did not come up. But it's just for your general knowledge that once you're over 65 and over, then it will automatically populate, right? Because it will be based on your NIS, and the system will recognize your age, and that will be automatically populated. Okay, clear. All right. Now, this section here on deduction, the next section is on deductions and statutory income, right? And this section is where we are being asked if there were any donations, any covenant donations or any donations, right? And this is not, and you don't necessarily have to complete, it's only what applies that you will complete the relevant boxes. But, for this particular scenario, because what we want to do is to actually incorporate different scenarios, because we realize that, different taxpayers would have different scenarios, right? And different sources of income. So for this case, covenant donations, those nations that you have agreed are contracted to make payments to these institutions on a periodic basis. Here we have two taxpayers, or two persons that we normally give donation: Girls Guide, Boys Brigade, and we have here UAU-TECH, and there are other approved institutions as well. And the amounts that we have given them is stated there in the column, with $25,000 towards the Girls Guide, and for the Boys Brigade, we have given them $35,000. Right. So once we have completed that screen, we just go to the right hand of our box, and then we click the OK button again. Right? And that information will just automatically be populated in the screen. All right. So the next section here is the tax computation section, right? And at line 16, we want to especially spend some time on that, where we're going to look at this incentive that was recently instituted are given to those persons who at the 1st of January 2023 install a solar system, right? So we're going to look at that schedule in a bit, right? All right, so the schedule 9 is the schedule that we are going to complete in order to do this, in order to establish the credit that is available to this taxpayer, right? So this taxpayer bought a system and installation and did the installation in 2023, right? We're going to note some very important things in the schedule, right? Because there's a criteria for us to benefit from this credit, and it's very important for you guys to know the criteria, right? So the first question, section A, is general information, and asks the question, did you acquire and install the residential solar PV system on or after the 1st of January 2023 at your principal place of residence, right? If the answer is no, then automatically you will not qualify for this credit, right? So number 2, our records show that your principal place of residence, based on what is there in our system, if you agree that this, and your address will come up on the screen. If you confirm that this is your place of business, then you just indicate same, right? The valuation number is going to be integral, as we want to know the residence that you are claiming for this credit, because one of the criteria is that your taxes has to be up to date, and therefore your valuation number will be integral, as we have to ensure that we do the necessary checks whenever persons apply this credit, right? Number 4 asks you, are you connected to the JPS grid, right? And you will indicate whatever the case might be. And if you have indicated yes, it asks you to provide the license number. Now you're asking, which license number might this be? So persons who are connected to the JPS grid and have installed a solar system, you are required to get this license, a license from the Ministry of Science, Energy, Telecommunication, and Transport, right? So you're required to contact them and to inform them so you can get the relevant information, how you can go about to attain this license, the fees associated, and the time that you'll be able to get the license back, right? And this is also, as we can see, is a requirement before you complete this schedule, right? The next question on the list is the principal place of residence used for commercial purposes? And why is this important? Because this credit is for residential properties, right? So therefore, if you're operating a commercial, if you make this application for a commercial purpose, you will not qualify for this credit. Sorry. All right. So section B is just to complete the relevant information. And all of this will not be required if, this is only because this is the first time that you are applying for this credit, right? Applying this credit. So the details of the residential solar PV system information should be noted in section B, the date that the solar system was acquired, and the solar system can be acquired not only locally, but it can be acquired overseas. The date that the system was installed, as well as the value of the system plus the cost to install or upgrade the system is also required. We see here that the system costs $6 million, but we know that it is based on the presentation that it is capped at $4 million with a benefit of 30%. So you are only entitled to 1.2 credit. You are only allowed 1.2 refundable credits, right, to be applied, right? As we go along, the licensed electrical inspector certificate is required, as well as the date that it was certified. And that is very important, right? So in your application, in completing the schedule, that it must be certified, or any amendment or adjustment that you make to your property in terms of electrical, it must be certified by the licensed electrician, right? And as we go along, our supplier, and here we have Solar System Inc. We actually got this system from overseas. And if it's a local supplier, then you are required to put the person's TRN, and that information can be seen on the person's invoice. Normally you'd have the TRN there on their invoice, right? And the name of the person that made the installation is also required, as well as their TRN, right? Here we got some big time electricians. That's the name of the company that did the installation for us. All right. So once that is clear, we just move on to the other sections of the schedule, which is section C and D, where the computation will be done. Right. So here we have in section D, where we will compute the residential solar PV system credit. So we want to know how much credit will be available to this particular taxpayer, right? So we had said in prior to say that it is capped at a value of investment amount eligibility is capped at $4 million, and 30% of that will give that person an entitlement of $1.2 million, right? So the person cannot benefit in more than $1.2 million throughout, right? All right, so section D is where we work out how much that this particular taxpayer will benefit, how much refundable credit will be allowed to this taxpayer, right? So in number 3 on section D, the statutory income, the tax on the statutory income is $28,977.50, right? Is that in any year that the return or the credit is applied for, we will not give you more than 50% of the tax payable, or if the credit is lower that you're entitled to, is that we'll give you the lower amount. So in this case, 50% of the 28,000 is 14,488.75, right? And we realize that amount is lower than the person is entitled to, and therefore we will give them the lower amount. So if it was the reverse, is that we would have given them the credit, the available credit, right? So whichever one is lower is that we will give them that as a refundable credit, right, towards the income tax, right? So what is available, what will be utilized for this period is 14,488.75, and the remainder at the bottom at line 9 is 1,185,511.25. So the customer will be able to carry that credit note over to the next period. All right, clear as mud? We will continue. All right, so once we have satisfied that the information is correct, we will just click the OK button, and it will automatically populate in section 16, where we have the credit of 14,488 as seen on the on our screen, right? We verify the PAY amount that was originally inputted when we went to the P24 and we entered that information, as well as the interest that we got from the bank. You know, that information is now shown here, right? And those information will be automatically populated from the first entry, right? So we just now navigate to the next screen, which is our computation of our education tax payable, right? So education tax is not, may not be on your P24. What I've been seeing in recent times is that employers have been putting the NHT amount that you have contributed as well as the education tax. And right, so you're required to input that information in this area. And as soon as you do that, you can just navigate to the next screen by selecting next. All right, so this section now is where we will do our refunds. We'll select our refunds category, as well as attach the relevant attachment, which is your supporting documents, right? Let me just note that, you know, for the residential solar PV systems credit, is that the supporting documents that will be needed, as Laverne had said earlier, is that every document, including the GEI certificate, government inspection certificate, as well as the receipts, the installation costs, you know, if you want to put your property tax receipt as proof of your payment, you know, any relevant information regarding that installation, including the license from the ministry, you will be required to send those information, right? In addition to the information regarding your P24s, your withholding certificate, your pension letter, or certificate, whatever form you might get it in, all those documents are required to be submitted, right? Including your client information form, which is obtainable on our website. And this is a form that you have to complete, as well as proof of your bank account information. Because what we do is that when we do the refund, we are going to send it to your account. So those things are critical, right? So we go back to the refunds, and what we do, once this is our refund, we will select the claim refund. And this screen is what will come up next. And all we need to do is to just select the category of refund, whether we fall under an unemployment refund or redundancy, study leave, certified disabled, expatriates, pensioners, or other, right? So what we have done is that we have, as I've said, is to provide a roadmap of the things that you need to attach whenever you're applying for the particular refund. And in this case, we had selected pensioners, so we see the requirements here coming up: proof of age, proof of pension, withholding tax certificates, P24, proof of income earned, interest statement. And it does not necessarily mean that you have to provide all these things. It's just whatever will apply, right? So whatever, if you have interest income, or you have pension income, or you have income from salaries, then you will just attach the relevant document. Okay. Now, once we have completed, selected the category of refund, we are required to indicate the supporting documents that we will attach, and we are required to check the boxes as, right? So we have our certificates, our proof of covenant, or supporting documents, or whatever the case might be. We have a list of items in the Dropbox that you're required to select that particular document or that you attach. And as soon as you do that, then you choose the file, and then you OK and attach the documents. All right. So once that has been completed, we just move on to the next section where all the information that we have inputted will be summarized. And this gives you an opportunity to go back over your return and to ensure that the information is correct and the relevant attachments have been made before you submit your application. I must pause to say that it is very important for you, especially where the PV credit is concerned, that you provide all your sources of income, right? Because we want to ensure that when we are giving you this credit, that you are entitled to it. And whenever you are making this return, that you have included all your sources, the relevant sources of income for us to approve your application, especially for a refund, right? So let us review our form. Salaries, as we can remember from our P24, is $1.8 million. The NIS that we had paid was $54,000, right? The pension that we had gotten from our pension scheme, $120,000. The dividends that we had received, $15,000. The gross interest that we received from the bank, as well as the annuities, is there. So all we are doing is simple going back over to ensure that we are putting the right information, right? And what the form does is automatically calculate the refund or the tax payable, whatever the case might be, right? So as we navigate, we are just verifying the information that was submitted, right? The exemptions that we are entitled to, 120,000. As I said, that was restricted to the person getting below the annual exemption amount of 207,530, right? So it was restricted to 120, right? The dividends that were received from preference dividends, sorry, right? The donations that we had given, we're seeing that being populated there. And all the form does is to do the necessary calculation, right? Here's where our taxable income from our tax on statutory income was determined, 28,977.50, right? And we can remember that from when we calculated our credit, that it was what? 50% of this figure that we're able to benefit from. As we go down to the non-refundable tax credit, we can see where at line 16, where the investment in residential solar photovoltaic system credit was applied. And in this case, we see at line 27, where a refund will be applicable, or we will come for a refund for this particular scenario, right? Is that all scenarios might not be the same. It's just basically based on what documents or what sources of income or what your situation is, right? So in this case, now this person will be due a refund of $16,988.75, as well as a refund was also done for the education tax. And this is probably coming from, the additional exemption that they might have received, seeing that that exemption was not applied in the employment, right? So that is basically it. The ITO5 is actually a very simple task. It's not rocket science. And all that it takes is just for you to have the source documents, is all that it takes for you to know what is required, that you can be able to put this information in the relevant section, as well as to attach the relevant supporting documents that you can be able to properly complete your return and also to do it in a timely manner, right? So this is it from me. I hope that this presentation was as benefit to you and that you would have learned something. And the thing about information, is that, while we say knowledge is power, is that knowledge is only power when you use it. So whatever information whatever you have learned, I just ask you to use it, right? And be empowered. God bless you. All right. So now we have another presentation, and I'm just going to invite my colleague, Mrs. Colleen Williams, who will tell you some more on the residential solar PV system. So just welcome her at this time.
So good morning, participants. Thanks to the coordinators for giving me an opportunity to share. Am I being heard? Good morning. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Right, so the residential solar photovoltaic system is pretty much a new kid on the block. And so my two colleagues before, Mr. Harvey and Ms. O'Hara, they would have given you some valuable information. And my role here is to just give you a little broader, to add to it, to bring a little more clarity, just to ensure that, and because of the newness of it, we want to ensure that you leave this platform with as much information that I heard Mr. Harvey encouraging you to use. Right. So I am going to be touching on a number of the salient points as it relates to the solar photovoltaic system. Now, before I get into that though, I just want to point out that this webinar today is the first in a series of, I think, about 3. And the focus today is on the IT05. So I did see in the chat where someone was asking if it is only the IT05 that can be used to claim this credit. And I say no. That is, you would have only heard the IT05 being mentioned today because that is the return that is being dealt with today. All right, so let me just make that clear. All right, so we're going to go to the legal framework, and I promise you I'll just go through as quickly as possible, but we just want to make sure that this new thing is clear in your mind when you leave the platform. So the Income Tax Act was amended by the Income Tax in 2024, and that in that amendment, this new credit has been introduced, right? And we know what a credit is. A credit is an amount that is used to reduce your tax liability. So whatever your tax liability is for the year, this credit is intended to reduce the amount that is going to be actually payable by you. Now, having said that, it will function different for different persons. So if you are employed, what that will mean is that you'll be getting a refund of some of the income tax that you would have paid. And that is the scenario that we're looking at today. If you're self-employed, there's a different scenario which we will address when we are going through the S04, when we're doing the webinar in relation to the S04. So the focus today is the IT05. All right. Okay. So you would have heard it mentioned before that the credit is in relation to systems that are acquired and installed on or after January 1, 2023. It therefore means the credit is not available to anybody who would have installed the initial system prior to this date. Another thing that we want you to understand is that what is considered the credit is only in relation to dwelling houses. So to the extent that a person installs the solar system for their commercial purposes, they would not be entitled to a credit. It must be installed on a dwelling house. Now, what is considered a dwelling house? This is a house in which the owner primarily resides. And it does not include an unoccupied house, one occupied by tenant to the exclusion of the owner or occupied by any other person in the absence of the owner. What this is saying is, if I own two houses, I live in one, the other one is locked up for whatever reason, I cannot get the credit in relation to the house that is locked up, not being used, right? It cannot, if I have another house, I have two houses, I live in one, I have one rented, whether be it Airbnb or whatever, I cannot get the credit in relation to the one that is rented. The other thing is I could buy a house and I put my relatives in there to live for free, so they are not paying me rent. I cannot get it for that other house. I can only get the credit in relation to the house where I am living. And I trust that that is clear. All right, so what is this credit? The credit is the equivalent of 30% of the purchase, the cost to purchase, deliver, and install the solar photovoltaic system, right? Or $1.2 million, whichever is less. So if you were to purchase a system for $3 million, the credit that you'd be entitled to, if all the criteria are met, which I'm going to come to in a little while, would be 30% of $3 million, right? Now, if the system, so up to $4 million, because, and I gather most of you on here, or a number of you, you're, good at math. So 30% of $4 million is actually $1.2 million. So the cap on the expenditure for which you will get a credit is really $4 million. So anything up to $4 million, you will get a credit of 30%. You may be entitled to a credit of 30% of that. Once the expenditure goes over $4 million, then the excess, you would not get a credit in relation to the excess. So if you were to install a system for $6 million, the credit would be capped at 30% of $4 million. So you would not be getting any credit in relation to the difference, which would be $2 million, the additional two, or the $2 million above the cap. Now, just to point out that the cost that we speak of does not include interest charges. So if you were to get a loan from one of those financial houses, the interest that you pay is not to be included in what we consider the cost. or what is considered the cost. Now, just for clarity, it was said before, but we just want to drive the point home. Who is eligible for this credit? It is only individuals. And it is individuals who own their principal place of residence. So you must be an individual and you must own the place. Now, what it means, you can be a co-owner. So if a husband and wife owns the premises, then either of the two may claim this credit. But your name, the person who is claiming the credit must be, that person's name must be on the title, right? And so we say individuals. So it is individuals who are self-employed, but we're not going to be touching on self-employed today because we're looking at the IT-05. And the IT-05 would be filed by employed persons or pensioners or persons in receipt of income from an approved retirement scheme. No, Miss O'Hara and Mr. Harvey, they would have gone through some of this information, so I know I can go very quickly, right? So today we're focusing on the employed persons and the pensioners. And of course, you are not entitled to the credit if you are using your premises for commercial purposes. All right, so moving on. So the eligibility criteria is one of the issues that we want you to be clear on, crystal clear. First of all, the system must be acquired and installed by the taxpayer or any other owner of the principal place of residence on or after January 1, 2023. That must be in your mind because persons have been asking, you know, if I did it before and I add to it after, am I entitled to credit? And the answer is no, because the original installation would have been prior to this credit coming into our legislation. All right. So the electrical work carried out for the installation of the system must be certified by a licensed electrical inspector. I heard Mr. Harvey saying that to you, all right? The homeowner is required also to be in possession of a license from the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. Now, that license is not administered by TAJ. It is with the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. So this is also one of the points that we want you to understand, that the homeowner, in addition to having the electrical work certified, you also need to have, once the person is on the JPS grid, once the homeowner is on the JPS grid, then that person is required to have a license. If it is a person who was not on the grid or is not on the grid, then you can go ahead and install your system without, or you can make a claim for the credit without a license. But once you're on JPS grid, which I think represents most of us, we have to have this license from the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. I think this license cost about $19,000, somewhere in the region of about $19,000, but you can get further information from the ministry as it relates to the requirements and all of that. All right. I did hear so I just want to reiterate the point that Mr. Harvey would have made. He said that all the property tax payments for the residential property where the solar system is installed must be up to date. And he did point out to you on the Schedule 9 where you would be asked to indicate the valuation number for the property in so that the property tax status can be verified. Now, in respect of the taxpayer, the credit must be for the first, the credit is going to be allowed for the first time. So what this means is that an individual will not get a credit more than once. So if I am living in somewhere in Kingston and I have a house and I would have acquired a system for that house where I'm living and I get the credit, I decide to then sell that house and buy another property somewhere else, I would not be eligible for the credit at that second property. That's what the legislation says. Also, in respect of the dwelling house itself, at which the solar system is installed, the credit is allowed only for once. So, if looking at the same scenario, if I own a house and I would have acquired the system for that house, I decided to sell that property and move to and purchase another property. But I'm not selling the property, my first property with the solar system. I'm going to move it to my other house, right? Because I won't be able to get another credit, so I might just choose to move the system to that other property. The person who purchases my first property would not be able to get the credit because that address would have gotten the credit before. And this is what the legislation says at this point, that's what we're working with. Okay, so how does the credit work? Of course, we would have said before that the ceiling on this credit is $1.2 million because the cap on the expenditure is $4 million and 30% of $4 million is $1.2 million. So in essence, the residential solar credit, as that goes up, we find that our income tax payable goes down. Now, why that is so? Because at the initial installation, you don't necessarily have to install a system for $4 million. Initially, you may install a system for less, and then you gradually add to that. But the fact of the matter is you will not get a credit for more than $1.2 million. And so your income tax liability would not be reduced by more than $1.2 million. And I trust that is clear. Now, in terms of how it is used, you would have heard before that the credit is to be accounted for on a return, right? And of course, most of what I have here screened, you would have been told that it is to be claimed on a return. The return must be filed online, and you were told how to go about getting help to make that return online. And if you are not clear on that still, you can always reach out to our taxpayer education teams. We have one in Montego Bay, one in Mandeville, one in Kingston, and one in St. Andrew, right? Or you can reach out to our call center and you will be assisted. Now, in terms of the credit, just giving you a little bit more information on the credit. In any year of assessment, the amount of the credit shall not exceed 50% of the tax payable in that year. So, yes, you are entitled to the credit, but it will not necessarily eliminate all of your tax payable in any year of assessment. And I'm going to give you an example. So say my tax payable I purchase a system for $4 million. I'm entitled to, I meet all the criteria, and I'm entitled to this $1.2 million, right? Credit. But in 2024, my tax payable is $1 million. What the first bullet is saying here is that for the year of assessment 2024, I cannot, the amount of credit that I can utilize that year is going to be 50% of my $1 million. Because here, remember now, I have $1 million payable in tax. I have this credit of $1.2 million, but I cannot utilize my full $1 million in tax payable in 2024 to write off, utilize the credit. Well, I would not eliminate my total tax payable by utilizing the credit in 2024. What will happen is that I will be able to utilize 50% of my tax payable, utilize the credit of 50% of my tax payable. So in 2024, I would be able to get a credit, utilize $500,000 of the 1.2 that I'm entitled to. The $700,000 that I'm not able to utilize in 2024 will go forward to my tax liability in 2025. And in 2025, I would then now get to use another 50% of my tax payable in that year. Now, it's because of this, I also want to use another scenario because you might not be able to utilize all of the credit in 1 year. And that is where your tax payable is equal to or less than the credit. And I'm going to use another scenario now to demonstrate this. Now, if my tax payable in 2024 is $4 million, the credit that I'm entitled to is $1.2 million. Now, the 50% restriction on the $4 million would see me being able to utilize, well, the 50% of $4 million would be $2 million. Now, $2 million is greater than 1.2. And therefore, in that 1 year, I could utilize the full amount of the credit. So to the extent that my tax payable is, because my tax payable is $4 million and 50% of $4 million is greater than the credit that is available to me, then I can utilize the full amount of the credit against my tax liability in 1 year. If that is not the case, because of the 50% restriction, I will not be able to utilize the full amount of the credit in 1 year. So, and the unused portion in any year, I get to carry that forward to a subsequent year, and the 50% restriction will apply in that year again. All right, so that takes care of that. The other thing, because it is a tax credit, it can only be utilized in a year when you have a tax liability. So if it is that you are an employed person or a pensioner who is not required to pay tax, then you cannot utilize a tax credit. Because a tax credit, as I would have explained to you before, is used to reduce your tax payable. So if you don't have tax payable, you cannot benefit from any credit at all. And this is not unique to the solar credit. You cannot benefit from any credit, any tax credit, unless you have tax payable. All right. The other thing that we want to point to, the second bullet was explained before. The third bullet says the taxpayer becomes eligible for the credit as at the date when the certificate of the license of the date of the certificate of the licensed electrical inspector, right? So if you have installed the system and it has not been certified by the electrical inspector, you are not eligible for the credit. So you could have done all the work to install the system in 2024. But if, as at today, it has not been certified, you will not be able to claim that credit for 2024. It is the date of the certification that determines the year of assessment that the credit can be claimed in. All right. So we're not going to do self-employed today. We're going to go to the so this is what we want to look at now. For the employed person, the PAYE person, or the person who is utilizing the IT-05. Now, in relation to a person who is currently employed or was previously employed and is now in receipt of a payment from a statutory pension scheme, superannuation fund, or a retirement scheme approved under the Income Tax Act, the application of this credit will result in a refund of a portion of the PAYE. And I need to make it abundantly clear that for the employed person, for the person who is using the IT-05, the PV credit, which is a non-refundable credit, because you're taking the non-refundable credit, it leaves room for you to get a refund of some of the PAYE or the refundable credit that the refundable credit, right? The PAYE is a refundable credit that you would have. And I think I have an example here that will hopefully make this a little clearer. Now, let us look at this scenario. Paula is employed to JAT Limited. Her gross pay for 2024 is $6 million, from which she contributed $150,000 to NIS and $600,000 to a pension fund. She purchased and installed a residential PV system at the cost of $3 million and has met the eligibility criteria for a credit of $900,000. Now, the $900,000 is 30% of $3 million. The allowable credit for the year is restricted to 50% of her tax liability. How will this impact her tax obligation for 2024? So I know some of us are visual learners, and so we will probably grasp it a little bit better if we see it in living colors. All right, so we see here that her gross pay is $6 million, less the NIS pension contribution. So her statutory income is $5,250,000. Of course, her threshold for 2024 is $1,650,090. because her statutory income is below $6 million, she pays, it is the threshold, which is subject, the portion of the statutory income that is subject to tax at 0% and the 25% rate that would apply, right? So 25% of the statutory income after accounting for the threshold, we see here, 25% of this $3.5 million is $899,977.50. Now, the solar credit that she can get for this year is restricted to 50% of the $899,950. Remember, let me just go back to the other slide. Remember that she installed a system for $3 million. And so 30% of $3 million is 900,000. If you notice here, her tax payable for the year is actually below the $900,000. And so, as I would have explained before, what she cannot now get, she cannot get the $900,000 in 1 year, or even utilize the full amount of the tax payable in 1 year. The legislation requires that the amount that can be utilized in any year is restricted to 50% of the tax payable. So here we will see that Paula's employer would have deducted $899,977.50 from her salary and paid that over to TAJ. Now, when Paula files the IT-05, because of the solar credit, right, that she is entitled to, in 2024, Paula will get a refund of $449,988.75. So employer paid over $899, which the employer is in their right to do. But Paula would now be required to file her IT-05. And upon filing the IT-05, if all the eligibility criteria are met, then Paula would be entitled to a refund of $449,988.75. So we see here where the application of a non-refundable credit, which is the solar credit, has given rise to the refund of a portion of her PAYE, which is a refundable credit. And I'm going to stop here and I'm going to ask if there are any questions. Do we have any questions? Or are they all in the chat?
We have one from Yvette Barrett. Yvette Barrett, hand is up.
Hi, just a question. So for the next year, Paula would have to file a next IT-05 to claim the other 50%?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks for that question. Do we have any other question? Is there anything that was said before that is not clear, or you would just like a little more explanation? I'm willing to do it again. All right, so moving along.
Hello, good
Connie,
morning.
there's another hand up, so that person can go ahead.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Based on the fact that you have said it would be 50% of that solar credit for that year. If someone has not actually done a refund for years, say argument 5 years, for at 2024, could they use the refunds? So 50% of 2020, 50% of 2021, moving up to 2024, and that then becomes applicable to the solar credit. So add it.
No, it is 50% of the tax payable for the year of assessment.
So it
So you could not use the credit against prior year tax liability. It sounds like that's what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong.
yes. So I was just wondering, forgive me if I may go off topic a little bit. I was just wondering for persons who did not claim would not submit a IT 05 for previous years. If they were to just do that now, so for instance, 4 years of submitting 4 different IT 05s, would they get what is it? Is that cashback or what is it that they get back? Or
What
is it just a
would oh, so the refund, they are entitled to refund for another reason. Probably they went on study leave or something. What would, because an IT 05 is used mainly, well, it's used by pensioners and persons who are employed who are entitled to a refund. So if they are entitled to a refund for any reason, as long as it is within, the year is not statute barred, then they may go ahead and file their return.
okay? Thank you.
You are most, have I answered the question?
I think so. I get from the fact if you didn't file a return and the time has expired,
Right.
you won't be able to. I'm not sure what, I guess the follow-up question would be when, if it's
6 years.
okay. Yeah.
Right. So beyond 6
Thank you.
years, we really can't, we can't come to you and ask you for information. We can't come to, do any kind of audit or investigation beyond 6 years. And so if we can't do that, then we can't give you a refund. Because we need to verify what it is that you're claiming.
We have another hand up from Mr. McIntosh. You can go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. All right, my question is relates to joint tenancy. So for instance, 2 persons, they own the home. So can if one person claim on one property, can the other person claim on another property?
So you and your wife own 2 property.
Right.
All right. But you and your wife live at 10 Ennis Street. You have one at 10 Ennis Street and one at 20 Ennis Street, right?
Right, right.
Both homes are in both names. Where is the primary place of residence? Is it that your wife live up the road and you live down the road?
Okay, all right, I get that one. So what if one of the properties is only in one name and one in both names?
All right. So remember, the bottom line is that it has to be your primary place of residence. So yes, we talk about the names and your name you must have title to the property. That remains so. But in addition to having title to the property, it must also be your primary place of residence. Always remember that.
Okay, I think that answered the question. All right, good, thanks.
Okay. All right.
All right,
Any
we have
other question?
Sharika. Yes, we do. We have Sharika Sterling.
Hi,
Go
thank
ahead,
you.
Sharika.
Hi, yes, I wanted to ask about the GEI certificates.
All right.
Or
So it is supposed to be licensed electrical inspector. It's not government electrical inspector. It's actually a licensed electrical inspector. But yeah,
Okay.
right.
So you're saying that because in most cases we usually need that if the dwelling was without electricity for a year. So you're saying that if I was occupying my home for however long and I decided to install a solar system, I needed to have done that inspection before I do so? Or is
All
it there's some
right.
kind of
Let me
asterisk?
sorry. Okay, thanks for the question. Very good question. Let me just revisit the eligibility criteria around those issues. So, in order to be eligible for the credit, right, you need to have a license from the Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology once you're on JPS's grid. So it is the whole issue of being unoccupied. Remember, if the house is unoccupied, it would not qualify for the credit. So once it is your primary place of residence that is occupied by you, you need to, and it is on JPS's grid, you need to have a license from Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology. In addition to that, after you have installed the system, you need to have it certified by a licensed electrical inspector. So those are two criteria. Don't know if I answered the question.
I think you have. So you're saying that once I install it, I need to have it inspected afterwards as
Inspected.
licensed.
And yes, if you think about it, if you were to construct a new home and you're going on in order to get on JPS's grid, you know that somebody would have to come to your house. A licensed electrical inspector would have to come to your house, come to that property and certify it to be in compliance with the Electricity Act, what is required under the Electricity Act. It is a similar thing. There might be, in terms of what is on the certificate, we might have some additional information in relation to the certificate, but the concept is the same. Once you install an electrical system at your home, we don't want you to burn down your house. So we want to ensure that what the installation is in compliance with what is required under the Electricity Act.
Okay, so it's not a GEI, it's a LEI, licensed.
Right, this is a licensed electrical inspector.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Yes.
Our next question is from Anisha Thompson.
Go ahead, Anisha.
Morning again, everyone. So I'm just trying to see if I understand it clear. So for our employees who, I'm asking because we've had this brought up with our company. So for employees that are employed who pay PAYE, they were asking us to apply this credit for them. We told them it's not done through us. It is the same ITO5 that we need to direct them through to make this filing. Am I correct?
That is correct. It is not your responsibility as an employer, as laid out in the second schedule to the Income Tax Act has not changed. So you are required to withhold the tax as is required under the Income Tax Act. And then the employees are required under Section 25F, I beg your pardon, of the Income Tax Act, which is this new amendment that we're speaking of. They are now required to apply for the credit directly to TAJ, and they do so by using the IT05.
Okay, thanks.
Right. And just to remind employers that Well, my colleagues before would have made mention of the P24, which is really a document showing the person's total emoluments for the year and the total tax that was paid. That is critical. So you would need to prepare those. In fact, even outside of the PV credit, employers are obligated to make a P24 available to their employees at the end of each year. So this is going to become more important now that you do that, especially where persons want to apply for this PV credit. All
We'll
right.
note
And you
it.
guys indicated that this P24 must be signed and stamped. Can't it just only be stamped? Because some of us are a very large company. We do the P24 at the end of the year. But the previous person who did the presentation,
Yes, but we want to be able to verify the validity, the authenticity
But the
of
company
it.
stamp wouldn't do that?
Pardon me?
The company stamp, wouldn't that do so? Or you're saying that we must sign it?
All right. So the persons in operations would have spoken before me. So I would keep
Yes,
to
he
what
did
they would
say-
have said because they're the ones who handle it on a day-to-day basis.
All right. Then.
Yeah, I guess probably yes.
We'll take Cassandra Nicholson.
Cassandra?
Oh, okay. Hi, good morning. So I have two questions. I'll keep it very short. I needed you to clarify first, what do you mean by I must be on the question about JPS's grid? If I have a solar system, I must be on JPS. Do you mean that the solar must be grid tied, i.e., that my solar must be feeding electricity back into JPS, or that my house is actually registered on JPS, receiving electricity from JPS and paying a JPS bill? I
The
wasn't
latter.
clear on that one.
The latter. So you're on JPS's grid if your house is connected to JPS. Or your
Okay.
property
So I would
is connected to JPS.
right. So I would still need to go to the ministry and register with them to get the MET
And get
code,
a
right?
license. Yes.
So I would need to get a license, even if I don't want to feed back electricity into JPS grid.
All right. So the plan at the understanding at the moment is that yes, once you are on JPS's grid, you're required to have the license.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's one. The second question is, okay, I need to clarify exactly which year ITO5 I need to apply for. So if I purchase the system, as in the agreement was made, funds was paid over in 2023, but the installation wasn't done until July of 2024, which year ITO5 do I sign up for?
Okay. So the system was installed in 2024.
Yes, July, and the date is specific because that's after the tax
July
year.
2024. When
Yes.
was it inspected? When was the licensed electrical and what's the date of the licensed electrical inspector's certificate?
That would have been in 2024 also.
So it is 2024 that you would be you would be able to claim the credit for.
Okay, so it's the
So it is
both
the
installation
license,
and when
the
it was
date
inspected.
of the date of the certified electrical inspector's certificate that determines the year of assessment that the credit is claimable.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't getting that. That's fine. Thank you then.
Okay.
We will take Kirk Smith hand.
Go ahead.
Mr. Smith. Go ahead, Mr. Smith. All right, until he comes, we will take Cardine Henry.
Hello.
All right, go ahead, Mr.
Hi,
Smith.
morning.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Oh, no,
sorry.
Miss Henry, can we take Mr. Smith? Thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. All right, it's a follow-on question that was started before. You mentioned the gentleman mentioned about the joint tenancy. It's interesting. So you have a couple joint tenancy, two properties. So one is living at one downtown, one is living at two uptown. For whatever reason, there's a separation. But they're both two different residents. They both will benefit, right? One would not benefit and the other doesn't. Once it's proven that they're both living in separate locations.
All right. Once you are an owner, you may claim one, and you have acquired a system for your primary place of residence, you may claim the credit. But both persons would not be eligible for the credit on the same property.
That's fine. That's fine. But two separate properties, and once you are living there, you're fine. Okay.
Your primary place of residence.
Yes, yes, yes.
So if you're just visiting and that, then
No, man, living as in they're separated and two separate location living. So
okay.
Okay, double checking. Thanks.
All right. The thing about it too is that some of these issues will be assessed on a case-by-case basis, but the general rule is once your name is on the title and it is your primary place of residence and you would have acquired a system for that place, then you're eligible to claim.
Okay.
Okay.
We will take the last two questions, and Cardine Henry, you can go ahead.
Hi, morning, everyone. Apologies if this question has been answered already. I was in and out of the meeting because I am taking calls and stuff on my phone. So apologies in advance if you answered this question already. But I'm following on a question that was asked regarding the installation and application for the refund. So I'm in the final stages of, I'm just about to install the system at my property. If it is installed before the end of the financial year that we're coming for the end of March, would I still be eligible to claim for it this year, or do I have to wait until next financial year? That's one. Two, I heard some mention of I need to apply for the certified electrical license. Did I misunderstand? Is it me who's supposed to apply for it, or the person who's installing the solar system? Me, the homeowner, that is. Or is it the person who's installing the solar system? And yeah, those are my two questions, and then depending on how you respond, I may follow up.
Okay, so I'm going to treat with the more recent one first. So it is the homeowner who is required to have the license that we ask for.
Okay.
And I'm going to add that if you could just repeat the first question for me, because I don't want to misinform you.
It's related to when am I eligible to apply?
Oh, when eligibility.
Yeah.
You're saying that
Yeah.
you would have purchased the system in 2024?
No. I am going to install like in another month or so. I'm going to start installing.
When did you purchase the system?
I have not paid in full yet. I started the process in 2024, like 2024.
You started the process in 2024. All right.
Yes.
So you have not yet acquired the system. And right. What is your year of assessment? Is it January to December?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
So
it
if your
is.
year of assessment is January to December, December 2024 has already passed, and you have not yet acquired the system. I remember I said, you said you were in and out. So let me just say this again, that it is the date of the licensed electrical inspector's certificate that determine when the year of assessment that you're able to claim this credit in. So the fact that you have not yet installed, you definitely would not have that certificate. You are not going to get that certificate until sometime in 2025. So it is in the year of assessment, 2025. Given that the installation and everything is done and the certificate is given in 2025, then that is when you'll be able to claim the credit.
Okay, okay, thank you.
You're most welcome.
We'll take the last question. Sharon Louis.
Okay, I'm Sharon Lewis. So it's about that eligibility, that last item that you just discussed. I purchased and installed my system, and I hope it just means the solar system. That solar with a PV thing at the end, I'm not sure. It doesn't matter, right? So my solar system, which I have installed from November 2023, I've not applied for the two things that you said we need to have. The Ministry
license.
Yes, the Ministry of Science license, and I've not had an electrical person come to think. So now, November 23, loving it like crazy, now hear about this thing. Can I now do those two applications for certification this year and apply for the credit?
Okay. So in terms of the licensed electrical inspector certificate, if you apply for that this year, then certainly that would be one step closer to the credit. The license, and if you get the license as well from MSET, from Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, certainly you'd be able to claim the credit in 2025. But let me just hasten to say, Tax Administration Jamaica, we do not administer, or we do not have any control over what happens at that ministry. And so they would be the ones to give you guidance as to, you know, the application for the license. Once they give you the license, then if you, to the extent that you meet all the other criteria, you would be able to apply for the credit in 2025.
Okay, so that sounds
because
like
the system would have been acquired after January 1, 2023.
2023, yes.
And you
yes.
would have met all the other criteria. You have your license and you have your certificate. Then it is in 2025 that you would be eligible for that credit.
The time when the latter, the electrical inspector has given it, because it sounds like I should try and do the ministry first and then do the other one. So to make
Well,
sure.
I don't know that you necessarily have to do them in any order, but the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology would be the one to provide guidance as to whether you need to have the other one done first.
Okay. All right.
Right?
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Yes, thank you much.
You are most
It's the
welcome. It
first
has been a
time that
pleasure.
I'm aware of any tax credit available to me, and I'd love to take advantage
well, I'm
of
happy
it. This
there
is the
is.
first one that I would be eligible for, I think.
I am happy that you're eligible for something, and you know, I know you're looking forward to it, and we just want, as long as you meet the criteria, put in your application, and you know, we'll be happy to refund you.
Yes, I
Yes.
thank you. I thank you.
You are most welcome. It is always a pleasure to, you know, provide guidance, information to our taxpayers, you know. And it's not just about when we want to collect. If there is something that you are to get, we are going to be here telling you about it as well. So that would take care of the questions, my coordinators.
We still have one, Cardine Henry. Did raise their
Okay, so we'll
hand.
take that one and then we wrap.
All right, thank you. Apologies again if you answered this question. Is the process different for the self-employed? I know the chart that you have outlining the credit refund and how it will be applied is on screen, but is there one for the self-employed / independent contractor?
Okay, so for the self-employed person, remember I said before that we are looking today in this webinar at the IT05, right? So the self-employed person would file the S04. So when we get to that point, then we would address the credit in relation to those persons. But since you have asked, I just want to say that in relation to the employed persons or the pensioners, they would get a refund because whoever is paying them would have deducted the tax at source. So the only way for them to benefit is for them to get a refund. Now, I want you to come back to the S04 webinar, right? But in respect of the S04, what happens is that the self-employed persons would utilize the credit to reduce their tax payable. Because remember, for the difference is that for the employed person, somebody deducts the tax at source and pays it over. That person has no control over that. That's what the law requires. So the only way for them to benefit is for them to get a refund of some of the money. As when it comes to the self-employed person, the self-employed person is now required to make their personal declaration of tax payable. And so in making that declaration, the self-employed person gets to take this credit as a deduction against their tax payable. So self-employed, say the self-employed person, just looking at what we have screened here, say this was a self-employed person. The self-employed person would be required to pay $8.99. What would happen? He would not end up paying the $8.99 because the credit would reduce the amount that he actually pays over to TAJ to $4.99. So he would not be getting a refund. He gets to take the credit upfront against his liability. So he would not have to pay the full tax liability, full tax payable, because he would get the credit to reduce it to the amount. So it's a similar treatment for both. It's just that the mechanism by which it is applied is different because of the difference in the circumstances between the self-employed as opposed to the employed.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Okay, so at this point,
squeeze Miss Williams, sorry. We're just gonna do squeeze in Maria Chen, as she indicated she have a burning question that she need to ask, and that will be the last one. Miss Maria Chen, and
Good
that would be.
morning. Thank you. Good morning, Colleen. I just want to clarify something. You talked about a license from the Ministry of Science and Technology, right? I get to understand, however, you get that license because you want to sell back power to JPS.
All right.
So you need that license because it's a license to sell back power. That's the only license I know of. That
Miss Chen, Miss Chen, could you repeat what you said? You were out for a while. We couldn't hear you.
Okay. All right. So I was saying, can you hear me now? Hello? All right. So
yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you, Mario.
All right. So I was saying that the license.
So I don't know if it's from my end or if anybody else don't have that issue.
Right.
I'm hearing her okay. I'm hearing her clearly.
Okay. So I was saying that the license you spoke about from the Ministry of Science and Technology, I believe that license is because you want to sell back power to JPS, so you have to apply for that license to
All
get
right,
that
so
approval. So I was wondering, why do you or the tax to get back our tax refund, you need a copy of that license?
all right, so we are working with what is the requirement, Maria. That is it as at today. Once you're on JPS's grid, then you are required to have the license.
But
That is what is required as at today.
okay, for the tax refund purposes that you want us to apply to that ministry, which takes about 6 months for them to get you the license.
No, I was told it takes 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, well, they must have improved the time frame since then.
And that part of it though, Mario, TAJ has no control
I
over,
know.
right?
But I
So
was
we're
wondering why
working with
TJ needed it.
what is required and ensuring that we cover the bases and cover the requirements under the Electricity Act as well as the Income Tax Act.
Okay, got you. All right, that was my question.
But thanks for your question though.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I just want to say thank you for your time and attention. Thanks for your interest in this topic, in not just the solar, but in the whole issue of the IT05. We are always happy to serve persons who want to know, who desire to know what to do and how to do it. It is always a pleasure. And so I may not, you would have heard my name before, but not from me. Colleen Williams, I am one of the technical specialists. And it was a pleasure for me to serve you today. And I say thank you and have a blessed day.
Thank you too.
You are most welcome.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to the next section. Next session.
There's thoughts in my head telling me not to get close, 'cause I know how these things can go. And you're keeping your guard up, never wearing your heart on your sleeve like you want to. I'm telling you now, I haven't any plans to run away. Every time I look in your eyes, I forget my place. You take me away to a better day. I know we'll be okay, 'cause we know this could go wrong. But for now, we'll hold hold on tight. As long as I've got you on this road up ahead, yeah, we know nothing can hurt us. I'm telling you now, I haven't any plans to run away. Every time I look in your eyes, I forget my place. You take me away to a better day. I know we'll be okay, 'cause we know this could go wrong, but for now we'll hold on tight. What we've got is something strong. Take my hand, we'll hold on tight. Where do we go from here? Feeling far away. Where do we go from here? I want to know. Where do we go from here? Feeling far away. Where do we go from here? I want to know.
Tell me did I cross the line? My spirit, but I'll make you mine. Never had the heart inside, reaching out for something. Got me overthinking, spell her wrapped around me, something like a charm. Yeah, you're my voodoo, controlling, got me watching. This time I can help it. Yeah, you'll be my voodoo, voodoo. Yeah, you'll be my charm, yeah, you're my voodoo. Control it, got me watching. This time I can help it. Yeah, you'll be my voodoo, voodoo.
Yeah, you'll be my
When your eyes meet mine on this summer night, I feel something new, yeah, deep inside. I got you on my mind, and for the first time, I found what I knew, yeah, someday I'd find. When your eyes meet mine on this summer night, I feel something new, yeah, deep inside. I got you on my mind, and for the first time, I found what I knew, yeah, someday I'd find somebody like you. Somebody like you. Yeah, somebody like you. Somebody like you. When your eyes meet mine on this summer night, I feel something new, yeah, deep inside. I got you on my mind, and for the first time, I found what I knew, yeah, someday I'd find. When your eyes meet mine on this summer night, I feel something new, yeah, deep inside. I got you on my mind, and for the first time, I found what I knew, yeah, someday I'd find somebody like you. Somebody like you. Yeah, somebody like you. When your eyes meet mine on this summer night, I feel something new, yeah, deep inside. I got you on my mind, and for the first time, I found what I knew, yeah, someday I'd find somebody like you.
waking up to see you and no one's there. The smell of your perfume still stuck in the air, so high. Yesterday I thought I saw your shadow running around. It's funny how things never change in this small town. So far from the stars, and I wanna tell